the case. Yes, when you start using Revit, you feel like, yes, it's a 3D modeler because you're creating a 3D model of a building and you have access to all like architectural kind of elements. And you have a feeling that, yes, this is what it's all about. It's modeling a 3D building in 3D and the benefit of it that you can have renders, etc., etc. Actually, the whole idea of the software and of this class of software, Revit just is most well-known software of this class in North America, not to model 3D, but to model the whole building and to integrate information about the whole building in this model. That's why this software, this modern software, is called BIM, Building Information Modeling Software. So the whole idea that you populate your model with all information about all systems which work in your building, with all information about materials, with all information about specific equipment which is used in the building. So, and with this level of details, when it's saturated with this information, you can produce all kinds of, you can do all kinds of analysis. You can produce all kinds of schedules. You can calculate everything about areas, etc., etc. That's the idea. So it's not just a 3D model. It is a model which integrates information about the whole building and the whole project. And that make this software very different from 3D modeling. For example, when you model in Rhino, you can cheat. You can make connections not perfect. You can leave gaps here and there, even if you are not precise in positioning elements, you can get away from it because by the end of the day, it's not something which will be used for precise like cutting if it's not about 3D printing, right? In Revit, it's not the way how it works. In Revit, you have to be very precise and very well organized because the quality of your model is how well it's populated with information, how well, and it means that, for example, when some walls are not connected properly, then probably some area will be not enclosed. And if it's not enclosed, it won't be calculated properly. And you won't know about that because it's a huge building, but it will be miscalculation. And so your schedule will be incorrect, right? So this class of software requires extra care and extra care about how the quality of your model, and you always double check how like what you do and how you populate your model with information, how you build your model properly, putting and connecting elements. So that's why I think that learning Revit is a new learning curve. It's new level in your professionalism in using software tools and architecture. So, and I wish you good luck in learning it. It's fun. Okay, thank you everybody. Yeah, Eric.
Okay, thanks for that intro, Leo. So to reiterate, yes, Revit is a building information modeling software. So unlike AutoCAD or Rhino, where you have the lines or volumes to represent certain elements of a building, you're actually creating the element that has encoded data into it so that you're creating it's a very efficient process, but also a lot more conventional because you're using the actual building elements like walls and floors that are created in the program. Okay, so you guys can follow along. I'll just be opening up a template that's already loaded into Revit to start this new project. So in this dialog, we'll click New, and we'll have a few different templates that we could choose from. For our purpose, we'll do architectural template and select project. Otherwise, we'll be working on a new project template that we can create a project from. So let's create project, select OK. And while this is loading, perfect. We have our workspace in here where you could zoom in and out and see our building. And to the left, we have two important panels. We have the properties panels, which basically outlines the data that can be adjusted and modified for a viewport if nothing is selected. And when an object is selected, its own information. So right now we have some parameters that we could adjust, such as the scale of this view or the name of the view, somewhere here. Should be down below. And for the project browser, this is basically a directory to view all your viewports for your orthographic drawings, such as floor plans and elevations, your legends, schedules, which are basically charts with data, your sheets, which are your printed version of these drawings, families, and groups. Okay, so right now I am in level 1 viewport, which is in my floor plan. And you could tell that this is the active view because its name is bolded. And so let's start off with changing our units. Right now I'm in Imperial, which is not what's preferred for Studio. We'll be working primarily in metric. So we could go to View tab at the top. Manage tab at the top. We're going to the settings panel and selecting project units, or the shortcut is UN. Here we can change our length, area, volume, units. For this purpose of this tutorial, we'll change just the length and the area. So right now it's at feet and fractional inches. We'll drop down the menu and select meters. Here we have the option to select our rounding, and as much as possible we do want to be accurate but not too accurate, so I'll select 1 decimal place for now. Our unit symbol will be M to represent meters, and there's a few options below that can be selected. Suppress trailing zeros means that if you have a measurement that's say 3.0000 meters, it'll just display it as 3 meters. We'll select that and say OK. And let's change the area units as well from square feet to square meters. Also with a similar decimal place rounding, and meter square sounds good. Select this checkbox and OK. So now anything that we'll be working with in terms of length and area will be in metric. Right now my scale value is 1:96, which is a weird scale number. So instead of custom, let's drop down this menu and choose something that's more appropriate, like 1:50 or 1:100. Let's click apply, and this viewport shall now have a 1:100 view scale. Okay, just gotta look at my notes. Okay. Now we will work with the architecture tab, and all the way to the right we have this datum section where we could select our levels for the height we want different elements to constrain to, and grids, which you should be familiar with right now. So let's select an elevation from this project browser menu, open it up, and anyone will suffice. You can see that there are already 2 levels created, level 1 and level 2, and you'll know this because associated with each level is a floor plan view. If I were to select my level here at the architecture tab and datum section and create my new level with a 2-click process, one to establish the start, the second to end the level, you'll see that in my project browser, I've created a new reference level, level 3 associated with this one. If you were to copy a level, however, if I type CC to copy, click and create a new level, this bubble is colored black versus the other three, which are blue. And you'll notice that in the project browser, we do not have an associated level. So be sure that if you are to make a new floor plan level from a level reference, you'll want to create it from the architecture tab or pressing LL, and do not copy. Otherwise, you won't have an associated floor plan. This, however, can still be used as a constraint, which I will talk about later with walls. So you have a few options when you're selecting the level. And this is shown in our properties panel. You'll notice how it's changed when I select it. So now these are properties that are attributed to this specific level. If I were to select all these levels, any changes applied to here will be reflected in all these elements. But for now, I'm going to delete this level 4 and create 2 more levels, and then we'll edit these. So you could follow along by creating just 2 more levels, 1 and 2. And you'll notice how Revit is pretty intuitive because it keeps continuing with the pattern. So we've labeled it level 1, level 2, level 3, and it'll continue with that pattern. A few ways we can edit these data is either directly through the element. So you'll notice these blue dialog boxes highlight when I hover over them. So that means they're editable properties. I could click on it, change the level name. We'll call this maybe roof 1. This could be roof 2. And similarly, I could change the height of these elevations through this dialog. So let's make this 14 meters. This could remain 12 meters. Or I could edit through this properties panel. Here I will change this level 3 to 10 meters. And you don't have to input the unit unless it's different from what the project settings are. So I could input 10. That should apply. Let's do the same with level 2. I'll change that to 4 meters. Okay. Some options with this level are a few grips. You can change, the length of this level and see how far these datum lines appear. This checkbox just offers the ability to toggle on these bubbles. So depending on which side of the drawing you want, you could place them like that. Okay. Another way to adjust your levels and grids and basically anything in your project is using dimension lines. So through the annotate tab at the top, we have a few options in terms of dimensions, or we could click DI as the shortcut. So we'll select the align tool. And what I want to do is select all the levels that we want to be editable. Once those are all selected, select the viewport or not an element, just like that. And now we have an easy way to sort of adjust the levels on the fly. Any levels that I want to be moved, I'll select, and these become editable properties. If no object is selected, I can't edit the dimension. So for my level 2, I'll select this. This becomes an open editable property, and now we could change my dimension. Let's say it'll be 2 meters at this level, and everything else will update. So if you feel like your levels or your grids or many other elements in your project will change constantly, it's good to have a string of dimensions so that you can update those. This one will be 4 meters difference, so it'll be at elevation 6 meters. I'll make this another 4 meters, so this is at 10, and so on and so forth. Let's select our floor plan. So notice that if I open a viewport, They'll collect as tabs at the top, which is easy to navigate. A few ways that you could organize this is going into the View tab here at the top, moving directly to the right at the Windows section, and you have different options to view your project, either through tile views or tab views. And so you have a lot of tabs open and not all of them are necessary. Select the one you want to work on and you can choose close inactive and it should make all of these disappear. Sometimes my project browser and my properties panel are accidentally closed. So if that happens, you'll want to go back into the View tab all the way to the right at User Interface. Select this drop down and you should be able to retrieve these items, Project Browser and Properties tab. Perfect. So now I want to work on grids. Let's go to the Architecture tab at the top, back to our datum, or choose GR for grids. And it works similarly as a two-click process to create one grid. I could space them out using this temporary dimension that's hovering above in blue to determine the span between grids. Or I could, again, use the dimension lines after creating a bunch of grids to space them out how I like them. DI as the shortcut, and I'll select all my grid lines, click outside of the space, and from there, select one by one the grid lines that you want to edit the spacing. We'll do 5 meters for all of these. Okay. So far, does anyone have any questions? If you have questions, just shoot them to the chat, and then I'll look constantly to see if anybody's asking anything. We'll create our perpendicular grid group. So I'll do again the two-click process, and this time we want to change this to letters. Let's call this A by double-clicking. Typing A. Oops. And because Revit is intuitive, it'll recognize that it's going to start its new pattern using letters. So a quick tip, just if you're creating an array of elements, just type AR to activate the array command, and you'll have a few options before you activate or confirm the array. Here at the top, you could determine if it's linear or radial. We'll keep it at linear. For myself, I want to keep all of the elements as independent, so I don't want them to, I'll uncheck this. And here I'll determine how many number of grids I want. I'll select 6, and we'll keep this at move to second. So if I select this grid, move it up 4 meters to determine the span, all my grids will be created that associate with the letter organization. So A, B, C, D, E, F. Really simple. All right, let's see what's next. We are going to create a wall. Go to the Architecture tab at the top, and we could shortcut using WA. A wall is basically made through straight line segments. If you choose this option, which is the default, and they all chain together, every click will determine a new direction for your wall. If you don't click and you set your wall to a specific orientation, in this case, I want this up and down. If I type in a number, I could create the measurement and hit enter to create that length for the wall. So I could type 10, and I'll create a 10-meter wall. Move this way, we'll create a 4-meter wall. And this way, let's say 2. So that's basically the the function of, or how you create a wall. I'll create ones quickly. There's different options or different grips that you could use. These blue grips help you drag to increase or decrease the length. This button changes the wall's orientation. So right now, you don't really see any structure or construction within it. But if I were to change my view to fine, here at the bottom right corner, and select a different wall type. So here I have in my properties panel, different types of walls that I could select from. Let's make this that. So you could see there's different types of layers for this wall. We have the brick, we have sheathing, etc. If we click these two buttons, we're changing which becomes the exterior and which becomes the interior face, which is really useful.
Just I want to make a comment here. Guys, your professors, they are not looking for this level of details in your drawings yet. They want you to design your building. For them, all this like wall structures, they're meaningful. And if you use structured walls like this level of details right now in your project, and they see that it's not proper, they will tell you that it's not what the right thing to do. So for now, until you really understand what this level of details and all this like information about structure means, and unless you really want to show this information, use basic walls without like this filling information, because otherwise it will be destructive and won't help you in communications with your professors.
Yeah, good point, Leo. So we'll move back to course view just to see the basic wall element. And we'll go through some of these properties that we could adjust. So having this wall selected, things that we'll be concerned with are our constraints. And I'll show you what that looks like in 3D view. At this top portion, we'll have a house icon that'll create basically an isometric of what the 3D space is. So we could select our wall here. I'll change this back to something simple like generic 8 inches. So right now, our constraints for this wall is the base is associated with level 1. So it'll start at level 1. It's starting at 0 meters. And our top constraint, it's not actually constraint to anything. It's just at a height of 6.096 meters. So what we could do is change this parameter to say roof 1, and our wall will have this height. If I were to change this level, for example, to 8 meters, because our wall is constrained to roof 1 level, it'll also update. So this is a nice way to adjust your building on the fly. Say you didn't like the level or the height of it, but you don't want to change all the drawings. If you were in AutoCAD, you'd have to change the elevation manually. This will automatically adjust all the associated drawing viewports. Okay. What other options are there? We can offset, meaning we could associate this top constraint to this certain level, but have it a meter above or a meter below. So we can change those parameters very easily. And yes, as I mentioned, this is the types of walls that we could create. And we have a range of walls already pre-made in Revit that you could choose different thicknesses. And I think at this point, it's important to know, at least generally, how thick your exterior walls are versus your interior walls. So yeah, you could change those. We'll do a little exercise where we go back into our level 1 floor plan. and create 4 different volumes using walls. So I'm just following these grids, but you guys at your screens can create whatever volumes you want. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna change these volumes so that they each have a different reference plane that they're going to constrain to. So selecting right to left and dragging, anything that's intersecting with the border will be selected. If you're dragging left to right, anything that's contained with the border is going to be selected. So I'm going to select this group and constrain my top to level 2. Select this group, constrain my top to level 3, and so on and so forth. Oh, I'll do this. Okay. And when we go back into the 3D view, we'll see that all our volumes are different. Hold the mouse button to pan, and to orbit, hold the mouse and shift. Okay, perfect. Now, any questions so far? I'll move on. Oh, go
I have
ahead.
a very quick one. In a 3D view, how do you pan besides just holding down onto the scroll on your mouse? How do you pan?
I think there are options here. So we have a full navigation wheel, which if you click on it, you have that pan option, and that works similarly to the mouse button. If you don't have this showing up, head into view, and it'll also be in user interface as navigation bar.
Is there not because I know in Rhino you hold shift and right click. So what button do I hold? Because when I hold shift and right click right now, it's rotating.
Shift and right click, sorry?
Holding shift and then dragging my right click, it rotates, correct? So how do I pan? What's the button for the?
I know it as the mouse button, but you could use this navigational wheel to pan.
Okay. Interface is different. So absolutely different software developers, they implemented different interfaces. So yeah.
Okay.
Another thing that's different from Rhino is that your selection, you're adding to selection is control instead of shift. So I'm holding control now to add to my selection, and shift does the opposite where it removes it. So that's another thing that's different from the programs. I had a question talking about, if I go back to my chat, so Julia is asking, oh, sorry, Diego is asking, can you export models from Rhino to I'm guessing that's V-Ray and the other way around. You can export and import between Rhino and Revit. I will be talking about that in another tutorial. So for today's purposes, it's just learning the basics of the interface and different commands. And we have another question from Julius asking, when you were using the shortcuts for different tools, were you typing them? Yes, so if I wanted a wall, type WA. I'll go into floor plan, type WA, and it should activate that command. And you'll know if a command has a shortcut using, just hovering over their icon. So wall is WA, door is DR, Windows WN, and so on and so forth. Okay, we'll be talking about doors quickly. A door cannot be made unless it has a host. So that's why we created the wall, so that once we hover over the doors, you'll see that it's appeared. And we just need a click in order to insert our door. A few things, one thing actually, if you press spacebar while you're hovering over, you could change the orientation of the door before it's set, and you can do that similarly when it's selected. I'm just cycling through the different options for the door using spacebar. And that could also be adjusted using these arrow grips. So you could select those. When we select our door and look at our properties panel, we also have a few information that we could change. We could change the level at which this door is located. Let's select level 2. No, I'll do a different, this block. I'll place a door on here. So I press DR for the shortcut. And I will select level 2. So you'll notice that it's now out of frame because this is our level 1 floor plan. If we want to see that door, we'll have to switch to level 2. And in 3D view, you can see that it's floating somewhere. Oh, there it is. Yep. Head back to level 1. I want you guys to just place doors around so you become familiar with how to do that and ensure that your level is appropriate for placing the door. Okay. You could press the space bar again. All right, and lastly, I'll talk about floor because this floor is similar to roof and ceiling in which you're drawing your floor plan instead of inserting it as an element. Again, in the properties panel, you can select what type of floor you'll want. There's a few options. I'll select general 12-inch filled. What level you want this to constrain to. I'll keep it at level 1, and what offset you can offset it from that level, but I'll keep it at 0 for now. And we have a few options to draw this floor plan. We can use different line and shape tools, and you'll know you're in this this mode when the lines that you're creating are pink. In this mode also, the elements that you've created are going to be grayed out, so that means they're uneditable, but they can be used as a reference. Should I select pick lines, this green command, I can select different datums from the grid or the wall as means to create my floor plan. So right now I'm just clicking the interior of the wall to create my floor region. With this command, pick walls, it'll do something similar where I select my wall and it'll determine where the line should be located. This one's a bit trickier because if you do have some sort of complex construction inside or a lot of layers, it might associate it to one of the interior layers instead of like the outside face. So I would suggest using pick lines or drawing your shape. Delete this. And right now our slope is 0, but we could add a slope if we want to. This will be associated with the whole floor plate. So all these are considered one floor plate because we're creating it in this drawing mode. So if I were to add this slope, the direction of the arrow is sloping down, I believe. Yep, down. And should I click the check mark to finish? For now, let's say no. I'll explain this later. And if we look in 3D view, all our floor plans or floor plates are going to be sloped, which we don't want. So let's select our floor plate, head to this option, which is edit boundary. And you can edit it in 3D view, but definitely it's a lot easier to edit in floor plan. We'll delete this and accept our change. So in 3D view, we'll see that our floors are created. Something that's a bit difficult in Revit is selection. So I want to select my floor, but right now nothing is popping up when I click. At the bottom of the right toolbar, we have this select elements by face, where we could toggle it on and off. If it doesn't have the X, that means we could select any element that by its face. And so now we could select our floor plan, or floor plate, sorry. I will deselect this, and now it's unselectable by face. Another way we could add it to our selection is hover over the edge. And the problem is we have a lot of elements on top of each other at this point. So what we could do is press tab to cycle through different elements which you could select. And you'll know what you're selecting based off this bottom corner. It'll tell you what items are selectable. Right now it's walls, so if I can select this wall, but we want to choose our floor plate. So we'll press tab, cycle through, and that way we could select what element we desire. Okay, what else is there? Lastly, I just want to show you another selection method. So I want to delete all these doors, or I want to change all these doors. What I could do is I could select them individually, hold Control to add to the selection, and from there delete it. Instead, Control Z to undo. I will select this whole area, or as much as possible, just the items that I want. And in our properties panel, we have this drop-down menu showing what items or what elements we have selected in terms of their category. So I could select just the floors or just the walls. Right now I want to select only the doors, and this will give us the option to have the doors in our properties panel and only have them editable. Even though all these items are selected, only the doors will now be editable. And I could change them to like level 2, say. Another way to do this is by selecting, say, all of these items, heading to this filter button at the top or at the bottom right of your screen. Either one will bring you to this dialog box. And from there, you can deselect and select which elements you want to pick. I want only doors, so I will select that checkbox. If I hit apply, you'll see now that the selections which are in blue are only for the doors. And I could delete them, I could adjust them, I could change their types, just like that. Okay, so let's delete that. I think that's all I wanted to cover for today's tutorial. Yes, so if you guys have any questions now, let's share them in the chat, or the space is free to talk. Noah, this will be recorded and posted, correct? Yes, so as I mentioned in the beginning, the link that you clicked to get to the Google Sheets in your email, which had the links to the tutorials, will also have a tab which I will place videos of these tutorials. Right now we have the Rhino and Photoshop already set up there, and so this one, once I finish editing the video, I'll place it onto that link. I'm not sure if I just don't see one, but is there a command script bar like in Rhino and AutoCAD where we can copy paste commands or view past history? I'm not too sure about that. I don't know if there is a history panel. Okay. And how often will we be doing tutorials? Every week we're going to have a tutorial catered towards a specific year. And generally for third year, we're going to focus on Revit because we are an integrated studio and it's one of the easier programs to coordinate a collaboration with and do a lot of the detail work. So third years will cover mostly Revit tutorials, but you're free to watch any of the year's tutorials, and the links will all be placed into that Google Sheet. So we'll update that every week to show the time and the type of tutorial, which program we're using, and what topics and concepts we'll be covering. Will they get into more advanced topics like detailing and mechanical? I think eventually we'll ramp up these tutorials. So talking about the Revit, right now we're in introduction because it's our first tutorial. We'll start to talk about more specific things like, for example, if I were to select a wall, you'll have a lot of types that you could choose from. But how are you going to change these types? Well, there are more editing properties for each type of wall that you can change, like the type of construction, the thickness, and the elements that go in between, that kind of stuff. So we will cover these topics further within the year. And I'm thinking of maybe sending out to every year a survey to see what topics you'd like covered, and have a consensus of what people want to know for each program. So hopefully I'll do that by today or tomorrow, just to see what you guys not want to know, or you can place it in the chat now to voice what topics you want to cover. Okay. After making a floor, how do you edit the slope or add a slope? So let's select the floor that I've already created. I'll untoggle this button so that my floor is selectable by face. Let's edit boundary. And here, the second option to add a slope arrow will add a direction to which you want the slope to be oriented. Here, I will have my slope orient to the slope to the right. And there's a few options in which you could adjust the height of the slope, either by determining what the elevations are for each point, or through a ratio over here by selecting this drop down. And if we look in 3D view, our slope is now created for all these floor plates. So if you only want one floor plate to be sloped and the rest to remain flat, you should probably do these in separate, as separate floor plates. Okay, does that answer your question, Dharma? Okay, great. Anything else that anybody want to? Great. How can we cut out a portion of something, such as a floor and walls? Okay, I'll go back to my floor plan view and create a new floor. Head to the architecture tab, click floor. Right now, I'll just create this huge rectangle. If you want an opening, you really just have to create another space. And so Revit will recognize that your floor plate is anything in between these boundaries. So wherever I'm like hovering my cursor is where Revit will understand that as a floor, and this will be considered a hole. There's other ways too. Here in my architecture tab and opening section, you could create voids that intersect with not only floors, but many different elements. And so I'll let you guys play around with that to see how that works on your own time. Okay. I don't have any other questions in the chat. I'll wait for like a few seconds. But yep, this is basically how Revit functions. You have already preset elements like walls, doors, anything conventional to a building that you can create the element and adjust the properties in the properties panel. And what's great about Revit is that you're not creating lines or shapes or 3D volumes to represent. You're actually creating the building elements. So it's super quick too when you're generating your drawings, because you'll have like the elevations already created. You just have to understand how to organize the display of it, and it should be good to show to your profs. All right, yep, no more questions. Are you able to do a tutorial for AutoCAD as well? Okay, yes, we can. I am determining whether it should be like a second year or first year tutorial. So I'm gonna chat with Leo. Is Leo here? Hello, Leo.
A question to the person who asked and to other students. Why do you think that you need AutoCAD? Do you need AutoCAD in your projects right now? Because you've got this GIS data. Like, why do you need AutoCAD? Is it important for your current project? Hello, anybody? Or in the chat? So just, yeah, so just for us, for our planning, we want to talk about things, I see, okay. So we want to talk to you about things which are important for your current projects you are working on, because we think that it will be of more value for you.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
So we will think about if it's offered to other years, as Eric said, probably for second year, for them it can be more important. Then we will invite you also, you will be able to join. And also for you, if your project implies using GIS data, then probably it will be covered. And if it requires some AutoCAD, work in AutoCAD, yeah, then we will touch this.
Will we learn how to use Revit with Enscape? Currently, I'm not planning to do any Enscape tutorials. It's a fairly simple plugin where I haven't even used it, so that's what you're gonna get, someone who doesn't know how to use it to teach you. But yeah, once you've installed it, it's basically a dialog box in which you could view the model and add materials easily.
Yeah,
my thing's not loading very well, but I'll close that. Yeah, it shouldn't be too hard. It's, from what I told, it's not anything like V-Ray. You could pick it up in like a day.
Yeah, and so, in Revit you have cloud rendering option. So in Revit, I think it should be still available for students. So basically, you can, yeah, you can submit your model for rendering in Autodesk Cloud. It's they have very powerful engine. It takes less time than you render it on your laptop.
Okay. So thank you guys for showing up to this tutorial. I'm hoping that you gain something from it, at least to know the fundamentals of how it operates. We'll probably we'll continue further in this series, I guess we'll call it, for the upcoming weeks. And so watch out for an email for probably a Google Form survey, just to see what you'd like to see in the coming tutorials, what topics you'd like to cover. And it doesn't have to be just Revit. It could be for any program.